some funds that, like the 3% weeds, one, there's some of them you're going to be tied into that's you really can't do much about. Now there is some, the general and some of these others, but then you're really looking at either cutting salaries or cutting health insurance, which we can't do because we're grandfathered in, and that really isn't a state mandate or anything like that. That's basically more a federal mandate of the health.
Maybe that will change in 3 months. Hopefully.
I have no idea.
Why are you saying that when you're saying there was an increase on health care, 3% wage increases on the county workers, and then before that you told us there was a 5% decrease in our budget, but we're still going to raise your taxes 13%.
It's an estimate, only a consideration. They have to wait till the valuations come in from the state valuation meeting the end of September before we can give you the exact figure of what it could be. What was it last year, Janelle? In the newspaper, we had these young ladies here in front last year here.
You had it between 16 and some percent and higher. In other words, by thinking of looking at these figures here, I'm thinking you could go probably 14 to 15 or 16% high again. I mean, being you don't have the right estimate here. Nothing's going to stop you. I mean, the state isn't doing any of it either.
But they didn't go up that high last year.
What? They didn't go up that high.
They didn't go quite that high. Oh, yes, they did. If you looked at your land evaluation things when you got back to your sheets and went up to that meeting.
Yeah, that's land, that's valuations.
Yeah, but that's what caused it.
This is property tax levy.
Well, where do you get, what is land evaluation? Your property taxes.
Are there state funds that can be tapped? Are there different programs that can be explored?
I didn't hear.
Jerry, can you answer that?
Well, some of you might remember there was Measure 2 was on the ballot. And so there's been a lot of discussion in Bismarck that we're not going to let this just go away. I mean, something is going to be done. When somebody mentioned grant, I don't think it'll be a grant, but there is discussion about the state picking up another program that the counties probably are currently funding, but the state's going to have to, well, I guess we're shifting pockets, but nevertheless, the state, somebody's going to pay for it, all right? We shifted child support a couple of years ago at a clerk of court. The state took over a few years ago and has funded. So, yeah, there may be a shift, but I don't know that there is grants available. But I know they're working on looking at other areas that they can help fund, help the counties out. Because we want to address this. I know there's a lot of discussion about the homestead tax credits. That's an issue that's going to try to be to help at least the folks with fixed incomes so that their property tax stays lower. So there's going to be a lot of those discussions. But as far as grants, yeah.
I want to touch on that just a little bit, if I can, if you don't mind. Every year, the Association of Counties has a resolution committee, and then it's presented to the Association of Counties as a whole, resolutions that are done. And there's going to be a lot of work and resolutions towards where we think the legislature should go for tax property relief. And I'm just going to touch on a few of them that I've heard. I sit on the Association of Counties board, and one of them is to have the state take over the social services. I don't know how, all of this is just going to be a resolution or try to work into the legislature. Social services is about 17% of the county budget. And if they take that off, that's one of them. Another one thought was maybe the district clerk, the clerk of courts thing. And the other one that was touched on a little bit is to take over full funding of schools. accepting if they want to build a hockey arena, or if they want to build a swimming pool, then that would have to be voted on by the public, and then the public would pay for it. That's just one thought that I've heard out there. I don't know how far it'll get. I know the talk has been on the taxation committee at the legislature to take the first $75,000 off of your property taxes. Now, I don't know if there's a 10% match on that or not, but I know that discussion is going forward. The thing that I'm trying to keep an eye on here is if they just give a property tax reduction, and Jerry, maybe you can touch on this a little bit, how easy is it, like say the $75,000 thing, you've probably heard of it, how easy is that, let's say that things go a little bad in the future or something like that, to take that away again? Pretty easy?
Well, you know, nothing is going to be easy.
Yeah.
You know, the last 4 or 6 years now, we've had property tax relief, supposedly, to the tune of $300 to $400 million a biennium. If that would go away, if the oil revenue would go away, that would, can you imagine the hit that would, I mean, we'd really be scrambling. It'll be interesting to see who's in the legislature then.
Yeah.
But who's getting the relief? Who's getting the relief?
Yeah.
Our taxes never go down.
No, and they go up every year.
You know, I don't know where the relief is coming from because my bill is bigger every year.
Well, I think to be fair, when they came, 4 years ago, you saw your school taxes go down. Not? You didn't see a decrease in your
I'm not sure.
taxes?
And the first time they did that, it was an income tax issue that really created a lot of... It's really difficult to give back money that we don't collect, because the state doesn't collect the property tax.
Yeah.
And to find an equitable way that meets within the constitutional guidelines has really been a challenge. And now they're continuing to work on buying these mills down for the schools. I don't know whether or not that's a good idea or not. And the current governor is talking about even extending that in perpetuity, whereas the legislature has always looked at it as a biennium, because what if we don't have that money next time, what do we do then? So, but yeah, there are a lot of, I understand Doug's point. I mean, it doesn't seem like we're getting tax relief, but I guess we've seen less of an increase than we would have, I guess.
Well, that's the thing, you see less of an increase. FEMA has spent millions of dollars in the county, and if it hadn't been for FEMA, what would the taxes be? And this spring, every township got $10,000, which was oil money or whatever. So those are forms of relief. Yeah, I grant your taxes maybe didn't go down a lot, but what would have they went up if it hadn't been for these programs?
Road may not have washed out, would maybe not wash out the second or the third time we get a heavy rain or something. They would not let them fix some of them culverts and fix them good enough. FEMA would not, so that you can be sure that road is going to wash out. I won't have a road as it is. I didn't have a road all last summer that would be decent that I could expect to get there. Right now, if I get 4 inches or 5 inches of rain out there, there won't be any roads. I'll guarantee it. So it's going to cost more in the long run, I think, to fix those roads.
Have you people looked at taking an average quarter in this county and see what, at a 30% increase in evaluation in the same mills, what that's going to increase the amount of dollars in taxes?
I haven't, no. And, no, I can't say that we have.
Why is it that every time before there's going to be a meeting on taxes in Bismarck, we hear about these big commissions that are coming out and they're doing something? There was not long ago ago, about 2 weeks ago, they came out with another one of these things. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, don't have to worry. And suddenly we have a tax meeting that says they're raising the taxes here. What's going on? Is there just a bunch of propaganda coming out of Bismarck? That isn't the first time that's happened. I've heard it before. One time before, if you listen closely, the only people that were going to get tax relief were some of the people in cities who had big businesses who didn't necessarily need the tax relief, whereas the farmers were getting no tax relief. Listen to some of that stuff. That's not good. But there was talk just lately here again. And all of a sudden it's quieted down. I haven't seen a thing in the paper about it since.
You don't know what it was, huh? You know what this...
I don't know exactly what all went on. It was on the news, and I just got to start cutting these things out of the paper and hanging on to them, I think. But it was on the news coming out of Bismarck. On the nightly news, they told about how this big thing was coming up, and they were going to cut down the property owners were going to get a lower tax rate and all this kind of junk. And I thought, this I got to see. And sure enough, you got a tax meeting there.
I don't know if that has anything to do with what they had. It's some type of proposal apparently that they're
It
bringing.
sure was
doesn't
comes in timing.
Well-
Both meetings that I've heard on advertising things on TV each time and listened to closely, sure comes in timing.
Are there other questions?
In regards to this.
Has everybody signed a sheet?
Now that 13.63%, is that gonna be no matter what, or is that just being playing it safe? It could be zero in the end, right?
Right, it's an estimate.
It's an
So it's
estimate.
not that it's actually gonna happen,
Right.
but you're covering the bases pretty,
We're covering the bases the way that they tell us we got
so
to figure it out.
once
for
you
this
know all
meeting.
the total thing, it might be 0 or 1%. Maybe, who knows, I don't know, huh?
Yeah, that's where we sit. We don't know. Because we don't have the valuations according to what they're going to be. But we have to have this meeting sooner than when we find out.
So it's not like, well, you're gonna actually get it, you might not, but you might get more too. Is it possible, or can't you go more than what this already says? This is the
What we
ceiling.
can, the preliminary budget, that one is as high as it can be. When we come back, like now after this meeting, we'll have our final budget. We can never go higher than that preliminary.
But I mean, this would be a ceiling too then? You can't go above it, or you can go above it?
Right, but when you look at your tax statement, you can't look at the bottom line on your tax statement. You have to look at only the county part. And then the county part includes more than what's here. So,
How much is the county part of it?
pardon me? Well, I'm gonna get one of those on this handout, it's just that I don't know these funds. On your mill levy sheet, you get a mill levy sheet with your taxes, and you can see what the counties are. The county levies are. You can also see then what these funds that they're looking at are, because it's only these funds. And so you're going to be a little, if you look at the dollar amount, you're going to be including schools, townships, cities, fires, and ambulances. Where, if you look at this part, you'll be happy.
I know it's hard to say, the townships I know don't have enough money to operate with. They need a lot more, and the county doesn't have enough money to operate with. They probably, and I don't think they squandered the money. The townships, for sure, I know don't squander the
No,
money.
I don't think so. I think that we...
But they don't never have enough money. So I don't know where's all the money supposed to come from, too. That's always a problem.
And that's one thing why I say with this, with the resolutions that we're trying to put together on the county-wide across the state, looking at things within a county budget that we don't think should be funded by property taxes. And I'm going to bring up social services again. You know, many years ago, if social services was needed, it was probably a family within your own township, and you probably understood why they needed help, but they were probably even too proud to ask. You know, and many years ago, I think that's what social services was. Now, to me, and I'm talking personal, I'm not talking anybody's opinion, this is my opinion. Nowadays, you've got people moving in, and some of them, I'll guarantee you, they know how to take advantage of the system. I don't care where it is, what it is. They know how to take advantage of the system. And you get some of that. Why should your property taxes, or why should my property taxes go to fund that? That's why I think social services need to be taken over by the state. Fund it with income tax then. But don't fund it with property taxes. Property taxes, to me, should not fund that. That's one area that I just got a real problem.
Is that set up the same in every county?
Pardon me?
Is that set up the same in every county?
Yeah, it's state and federal guidelines. Yeah, it's the same in every county.
Did the schools, when they came in, did they come to you when they set up their mill levy? No, they go their own.
They're totally separate.
So you don't know what they have done at all yet.
All I know is that Pheasant School District had a meeting. I didn't go to it. I guess nobody went to it the way the paper reads. They were looking at a 3% increase, and that's what they did. They did a 3% increase. Harvey, I don't know. I guess. Anybody know what Harvey was? I don't.
They were talking quite a bit, but I'm not sure what the exact number.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know.
So as we said, all you're talking about here today is 112 mills for the county, but like I say, when you get your taxes, there's going to be another 150 or more on there that we have no control of or have no idea what they're going to ask for.
If I remember right, the total mills last year was over 300 mills, I think. Does that sound right? I don't have the paper with me, but I think it was over 300 mills. And we control, you know, the 115, 120 mills of that. Somewhere in that range.
It wouldn't be so bad that some of the people that are getting some of the services nowadays probably did not do as much work in their life for your county, your township, and your everything within your areas and community as many of us do. We do more many times over. Not only that, we also do a lot of charity work along with it. I know, I could give you some examples of that type of thing, but yeah.
Now, another thing, you could have this meeting and you could say their mills are going down 5% and nobody would show up, but even then, if they were saying they're going down 5%, when you get your formulation, you could still go up anyway, right?
Yeah.
Did you follow me?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're, basically I'm saying, it doesn't matter what you say here. It could have said they were going down, and when it was all said and done, they could still go up.
Yeah.
You know, so if you were printing in the paper, the mills are going down 5%, you wouldn't have nobody showing up here.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they can't go up either. You have, you know. It really doesn't know whatever. We really don't know the final outcome.
Do you have another one, please?
Do we have another public meeting? No. Other questions?
I would assume that that'll be published, though, when you do find out the exact numbers, it'll be published in the paper.
We'll have our final budget published in the paper.
When will you have the final budget by?
Final budget will be published approximately when?
Beginning of September.
Beginning of September.
No, you meet September 7th, so that's a Thursday, so it'll have to be the next week.
And you still won't know from the state till the end of September?
We'll know before then, before the final budget.
Well, no, we will publish our final budget, but we
Yeah.
won't know what the valuations are.
From this, okay.
Right.
We still won't know that.
No.
So things
No.
can still change from that time on. I mean, as far as the.
Right.
I have to admit, I don't follow what's going on here, though, in a sense, when your budget is lowered 5%, which is good, but you still have to have a 13.63% increase. I guess I don't follow, but
Yeah,
for
I don't
myself,
blame
in my
you.
mind, I'd have to go home and sit alone and think about it.
I'm with you on that. Has to be really quiet to think about that and get it all thought out, right?
Is it your expectation that the mills will go down?
It's my expectation. It is my expectation. You know, I want you to know that with this whole soils thing and the ag land valuations increase, that we had to take a hit on this. That was not our decision by any means to change those valuations that much. That's a formula that's done from NDSU. I'm not talking the soils part, I'm talking just the straight ag land valuation productivity. When we saw the number, there wasn't any of us that were happy about it. You know, I own land, my folks own land. I don't like to see increased taxes by any means. I don't like to pay them, and I know you guys don't like to pay them. And, you know, that was one hit. Then with the soils thing, we knew that was coming for about 5 years. We've been trying to work on it. We understand that there's problems with it, and there is, and we got to try to work through them. And again, I didn't like it, but it came, and that was mandated by the state that we have the soils, go to the soils. We weren't 100% based off the soils in the past, and it seemed like everything worked okay. But now all of a sudden, it comes that we have to go soils, and that brings its own set of problems, and I don't like it. But we've got to work through it and try to get there, because that's where we're at.
And there's going to be some big changes on
There's going to be.
quarters of land
Yes.
between the highest priced land and lowest. There's going to be some big changes on some quarters.
Are they ever going to take into consideration other things in valuation of some of that land instead of just going into soils? Because
Yes.
there is a great deal of differences in what a piece of land is going to
Yeah.
produce compared to what they say is in that soil. And there's other factors.
There are, and what happened this year, and it didn't, it happened late. The company that we hired to run this, I think probably took on more work than they probably should have, and it stretched them too thin. There were modifiers that were supposed to be used on this land, such as wetland issues. You know, if it's farmable wetland and it's underwater, you can get inundated. You know, use inundated on that, and that takes you to about a $14 per acre. Again, don't quote me that 14, but it's right there. Valuation on that. Now, if it's land that's underwater, the most we can go on a modifier is 40% less than the valuation of the soil. Now, tell me if that makes sense. But that's where we're at. We've got to work through that. Try to work through that. There's some other issues. Modifiers were not used in the figures this year. They better be there next year.
Some of that valuation on wet lands, some years that land is wet, but it still hasn't been wet long enough so that you
For
be
inundated.
listed as inundated.
Yeah.
Yet that same land is not going to produce as well as the rest of that field, and maybe for a while until it's been able to build it up again after we get a drought. See, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And these factors are not taken in. They go out there, I'm thinking of a field of mine,
Yeah.
which isn't really mine because it's in an estate. But it's in there, and the prices went up on it, valuation went up sky high, and yet this field does not produce like they are saying it should be producing because of the soil.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And there's a
Doesn't at all.
lot
They
of work
didn't
to
take
be,
into
there's a lot of
anything-
work to be done yet on that soils
Right,
part.
they didn't take into
Fully
any, and
admit
I can
that.
see this in other people's fields
Yeah.
around me too.
Yeah, they, I did talk to the state, you know, they had their equalization meeting, and I talked to Marcy Dickerson down there, and I said, is there a county in the state that you can say is doing the soils part generally right? I don't know if anybody, you know, can say they're ever 100% right. She did mention Stutzman County, that they probably are the closest, but they even had people down to the state equalization meeting too. And it's my understanding that Sidwell Company, who we hired, is in process of talking with Stutzman, seeing what they're doing down there. And I want to talk to Stutzman County too and see what kind of things they're using. I did get a little of an indication of what they were doing, but I'd like to visit with their tax director too and find out, and maybe have him come up and visit with our soils committee for trying to fix the soils valuations. So, any other questions? If not, I guess we'll adjourn, and we're here. If you have further questions or something, like, you know, talk to me or talk to any of the other board, and we'll do our best to answer. And if we don't have the answer, then we'll try to get the answer for you.